In September 1906, the Bronx Zoo put a man in the monkey house. They gave him a cage, a hammock, and a bow to shoot at a target. 40,000 people came on the first Sunday. This is how he got there. His name was Ota Benga. He was about 21, 4 feet 11 inches tall. And in the spring of 1904, in the Congo, he was sold to an American for a pound of salt and a bolt of cloth. He'd had a wife and 2 children. A militia came to his village while he was out hunting and killed everyone in it. The militia was called the Force Publique, and it collected rubber. Because the Congo then wasn't a Belgian colony, it was the private property of one man, King Leopold II, and the rubber was his. Ota Benga was alive because he hadn't been home. Slave traders caught him afterwards, and that's who the American bought him from. The American was Samuel Phillips Verner, a former missionary from South Carolina. He wasn't traveling for himself. The Louisiana Purchase Exposition was about to open in St. Louis, and its Department of Anthropology had commissioned him to bring back human beings. Verner said afterwards that he'd rescued Ota Benga from cannibals. No historian has found anything to support it, and he had every reason to say it. A rescued man is a better exhibit than a purchased one. The fair opened in April 1904. 19 million people came through it. Its Department of Anthropology wasn't a collection of objects, it was a collection of people. I knew families from Hokkaido, a Patagonian man, a Kwakwakwa man from Vancouver Island, a Navajo woman carrying her child, Inuit with a sledge, 1,200 Filipinos, and a reservation built beside a lake. They lived there, in view, for 7 months. And the arrangement had an argument built into it. Walk this way, and you walk from the primitive to the civilized. The visitor was invited to understand that he was standing at the end of it. This wasn't a fairground opinion. It was the scientific consensus of the age. It had a department, a staff, and a budget. Ota Benga became the most popular exhibit in it. As a boy, his teeth had been filed to points, a ritual decoration done at home, the way other cultures pierce an ear. In St. Louis, it was sold as evidence that he ate people. He charged 5 cents to open his mouth. One newspaper advertised him as the only genuine African cannibal in America. On the 28th of July, the crowd pressing round him turned into a mob, and the 1st Illinois Regiment was called in to break it up. His photographs are still held under the captions the department wrote for them. This is one of those captions, in full. The department had a director, William John McGee. In a stated purpose, he meant to demonstrate scientifically that human beings could be ranked. So in August, he ran an experiment. Over 2 days, the people on display were taken out and made to compete. Running, hurdles, the shot, the javelin, archery, pole climbing, a tug of war. One event was restricted to Patagonians. He ran it with James Sullivan, who was organizing the Olympic Games that the same city was holding that summer. They called it Anthropology Days, and the results went into the official record of those games. The conclusion was one sentence. The whole meeting proves conclusively that the savage has been a very much overrated man from an athletic point of view. When the fair closed, the others were taken home. Ota Benga went back to the Congo with Verner, found there was nothing to go back to, and returned to New York with him. He was given a spare room at the American Museum of Natural History, and a linen suit, and he was brought out to entertain donors. He was homesick, and he didn't perform well. Asked to seat a donor's wife, he threw the chair across the room. It passed close to her head. The museum's curator suggested that Verner take him to the zoo. The New York Zoological Park had opened 7 years earlier in the Bronx. Its director was William Temple Hornaday. And Hornaday was a conservationist of real standing. He'd done more than any other man to save the American bison from extinction. The herds alive today descend from animals he kept. He gave Ota Benga work carrying feed and sweeping the animal houses. Then he noticed that the visitors were more interested in the man than in the animals. On the 8th of September 1906, the zoo put him in the monkey house. He shared the cage with an orangutan called Dohong. They hung his hammock in it and gave him a bow and arrows and a target to shoot at. The bow wasn't a prop. It worked. There was a sign on the cage. This is all of it. On the Sunday, 40,000 people came to the zoo. That's the zoo's own figure. Attendance for the month of September doubled on the year before. They followed him around the enclosure. They poked at him to make him move, and they laughed. Black clergymen in New York objected at once, and they didn't object quietly. The Reverend James Gordon said this: "Our race, we think, is depressed enough, without exhibiting one of us with the apes. We think we are worthy of being considered human beings, with souls." Another put it more exactly: "We send our missionaries to Africa to Christianize the people, and then we bring one here to brutalize him." The New York Times defended the exhibit. It ran an editorial explaining that the idea that men are all much alike, except as they have had or lacked opportunities, was now far out of date. In the end, Ota Benga stopped it himself. He began shooting arrows at the visitors who mocked him, and the zoo took him out of the cage. He was released into the care of Reverend Gordon, who placed him in an orphanage in Brooklyn, and then, in 1910, sent him south to Lynchburg in Virginia. They capped his teeth. They bought him American clothes. The poet Anne Spencer taught him English, and he started at the seminary school, a grown man in an elementary class. It was through her that he's said to have met Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. By then, he was a man with a name, a job, and people who knew him. He took the name Ota Benga. He found work in a tobacco factory, and he began saving his wages because he decided to go home. Then in 1914, the war closed the passenger routes across the Atlantic. There was no way back, and there wouldn't be one for years. On the 20th of March 1916, Ota Benga built a ceremonial fire, took off the American clothes, and chipped the caps off his teeth. He sang and danced round the fire, and then shot himself through the heart. He was about 32. He was buried in an unmarked grave. Hornaday never apologized. He defended it at the time as a scientific one. An ethnological exhibit, he called it. When the apology did come, it named him by name. Two of the men who founded his zoological society were Madison Grant and Henry Fairfield Osborn. Grant wrote a book called The Passing of the Great Race. It argued for ranking human beings by race and for sterilizing the ones it ranked lowest. Osborn wrote the preface. Both men helped found the American Eugenics Society in 1926. At Nuremberg, 40 years later, extracts from Grant's book were entered into the record by the defense. The New York Zoological Society is still working. It's called the Wildlife Conservation Society now. It runs the Bronx Zoo, and it does serious conservation work in dozens of countries. On the 29th of July, 2020, it apologized. 114 years, everyone who could have received that apology was dead, including the man himself, who'd been dead for 104 of them. The showmen in this trade bought people, or hired them, or simply took them. They never pretended it was anything but a show. What the zoo had that the showman didn't was a reason. It called it science. The monkey house is still standing, and the man they put inside it was called Ota Benga.